In this section, we're going to talk about media alternatives. So these are our message channels so that we can ask, hey, where and how shall I place my ad? So here are those steps again to remind us what we're doing. We figured out an audience and our objectives. We even have an idea about what we might want to say or have the audience member take away from it. Now we need to see what form it can precisely take and what particular tool can or will we use. So which is the best advertising medium? There's no simple answer to this question. So it'll depend on things like your objectives, the characteristics of your target market, the funds you have available, and the nature of the media. So who is reached? With what frequency? With what impact? And at what cost? So some steps to think about is before choosing the medium, you gotta have your specific promotional objectives. Some media is gonna be better than others at delivering your outcome. So for example, if you want them to subscribe to an online newsletter, it's much harder for them to do so through a direct physical mail appeal than a direct email letter. With the email letter, you simply click a button and you are subscribed. So the marketer must match the market with the media. Specify the characteristics of the target market in order to select the media they hear, read, or see. So most media do research to develop audience profiles, so you're not at it alone. And profiles should include segmentation dimensions beyond demographics. So not all seniors use email or newspapers in the same way, and likewise your target market might be made up of seniors who are heavily involved with certain media. Marketers should do their best to select media that attract a higher percentage of their desired target market. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. Advertisers pay for the whole audience the media delivers, though, so you can imagine that you want the most efficient you can. Add exposure to non-target consumers. Sometimes, effectively, you have it to non-consumers. It's a part of the issue. That's a problem that we haven't yet solved because we're not able to directly target whoever we want. So in this example, they anticipate the target audience, as a blast from the past, who use mass transit or just traveling by likely know there should be a big gaping hole here. It speaks to the nature of the media, bus stops. The message works on both levels toward two customer groups. It works toward those who know who Thor is and the power of his hammer Mjolnir because they will recognize that iconic hammer and are rewarded for that familiarity. Meanwhile, it also works for those who are unfamiliar with Thor because they may become curious about the nature of this character and also have a sense now of one of the most iconic symbols for the character. So in sum, similar to the last slide from the first promotional slide deck, advertising, like all their promotions, are best when targeted and part of a strategy. So this exhibit, taken from the textbook, compares the characteristics of several types of media. Notice how their advantages and disadvantages vary. Let's do a quick blurb on each. Feel free to think of an example to make this easier. So first we've got television. So provides a way to demonstrate products, good medium for getting attention, and offers wide reach and potentially good targeting if you go for some of the cable channels. Disadvantages include expense, competition among lots of ads, clutter. You can remember how a lot of us don't really like watching them. But it remains popular because it continues to become increasingly more fragmented and people still sometimes do watch. Something to keep in mind is that audiences are watching TV content in more ways than ever, so stations have been responding to this by finding ways that advertisers can better connect with that target customer, such as only having ad play when certain themes are present in the programming. Radio. Often wide reach, low cost, and appeals to highly segmented audiences. Disadvantages include weak or distracted customer attention, short exposure, and varying rates at which customers are actually paying attention. This is one where you really need to consider the ways customers are consuming that programming. So are they doing it in the car? Is it online? While at work? Magazines. Very targeted, provide good detail and excellent graphics, have high pass-along rates, potentially very long shelf life, and the book notes that customers are usually in more inspired mood, where they're more usually interested or involved when they're looking at them. So that means they'll be more receptive to types of ads. So say you're more likely to be interested in maybe food things if you're looking at Food Network versus, say, the TV news. Disadvantages include inflexibility once printed, long lead times, and cost. So newspapers, and they pretty much mean paper newspapers in this case, offer flexibility, timely placement, so you likely know when they'll be reading it, and good local market coverage. Some disadvantages are expense for some markets, short life when it's paper, and even online to an extent. People aren't always exactly saving these, and less pass along readership. And so again, as you can imagine, online news is just a little bit different. Yellow pages and other directories reach local customers who are seeking purchase information. However, competitors are listed there, so differentiation can be tricky. These can be printed on paper or online. And note, don't just think in terms of yellow pages. That's a little misnomer. They mean any type of listings. So think in terms of, say, the American Marketing Association publishes a directory of marketing firms via their magazine. Another, the business journals, hosts business directories and publishes what's called the Big Book of Lists for different businesses within a geographic region, such as Orange County and LA County. One of my past companies, in fact, had me use this and other sources to find prospective leads. And these are, in fact, very targeted sometimes, depending on what directory you're looking at, such as businesses and organizations, say through the Chamber of Commerce, nonprofits like charity organizations or houses of worship, ethnic communities, and many combinations thereof. So, for example, I was able to look up the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce listings are an example of a more targeted market. Next, not the best way they call it, but the internet. There are all sorts of internet-type advertising tools, including paid search, banner ads, and others. They can include sounds, visual, and animation. They can easily let a customer navigate to a more detailed site. So, for example, many web games can have little demos right then and there for you to try. Weaknesses are that, like other advertisers, customers don't usually like being interrupted. For example, YouTube often gives you push notifications when a channel you are subscribed to posts a new video, but they quickly realize they might want to draw the line at what they call recommended videos. If customers had not opted into them and might treat these notifications like spam, and then maybe even decline all push notifications from then on. Another weakness of internet advertising is that it can be difficult to compare total costs with other types of media because we're still developing good metrics that link engagement to actual lead generation, sales, and revenue. And this is further complicated with the proliferation of smartphones. Internet-based advertising is becoming more mobile. Marketers can use geographic and more location-based placement. Tricky thing now is, again, we've got privacy and transparency considerations for the internet. And this connects well with those beacon videos shown in the retail chapter. So they activate and send you promotional messages when you're nearby. Next, they group outdoor advertising, sometimes called urban, including billboards, transit advertising, other types of signage. They are often flexible, inexpensive, and offer repeat exposures. However, exposure is very short often. There's a lack of market segmentation. It just happens to be whoever is out there. Then again, that may just be who you need to appeal to. And finally, direct mail. We talked about this. It's very flexible, can be personalized, and is very selective. Disadvantages include expense for contact, junk mail image, and difficulty retaining attention. So, a lot of you have a lot more experience with TV and radio, but internet advertising is often a bit more unfamiliar. Well, we see it, but we have had less experience learning more about it. So we're going to go over some of the big ones now. So the key thing about ads is that they are paid placement. So that means they can take all sorts of forms. So we often know about print ads like signs, pamphlets, billboards, and magazines, and we know radio and television. So big ideas again. We're going to learn more about how these tend to work so you have an idea of what you can do. So first, display ads, or sometimes called banner ads, are those rectangular ones that we see on the tops, middle, sides, and bottoms of our screens. They can have text, images, and sounds. They may load with the screen, pop up above the screen, or change as you navigate the page. The contents of the ad may be static or include movement where the movement is auto-generated, or as the movement is based on user participation. So maybe if you hover over it, and maybe when you hover over it, things light up or reveals more of the ad. The movement of the ad may be quite literal, where the banner ad follows you wherever you're navigating up or down. They may also change the background of the web page you're on or parts of the background. For these, we used to use Flash, but now it's encouraged to use HTML5 and GIFs to make sure they'll be accepted and load on all browsers. So Pandora here, for example, plays display ads that are static images, but also have in-app radio ads with audio and visual. You'll notice that many ad networks, like on Pandora, will use geographic locations. So this ad knows I was currently in Orange County region at the time I was listening. Another student mentioned that he still had Alaskan ads playing despite being in California based on his location settings. Here's an example of an interactive banner ad game. I note the cute little game graphics and the horrifying looking skull make for an easy partnership, but I'll trust whether the History Channel has enough irreverence to pull both off with their mood or tone. Next, we have what's called contextual targeting or contextual-based ads. These selects an ad based on what's on your actual screen, so usually keywords present on the screen. Google display ads are those run by Google, for example. They often rotate. In this case, most of these ads are responding to the fact that I'm on a Disney theme parks and news site called MySage, so it's pulling different key terms. Namely, there's changes to the Cove Bar restaurant and Californian Screaming Coaster. So it pulls an ad for, say, the Cove Hotel and another news piece on the roller coaster. You'll also notice it has ads based on my past search history, which brings us to our next slide. So that's why you can see about data visualization, because I was looking up stuff on that. So we have what's called next retargeting or remarketing ads. They use your search browsing history to populate an ad. So have you ever seen the issue where you search for something on Amazon or somewhere else and the ad keeps reminding you? Well, that's why. In this example, Amazon would like to remind me I searched for stop rockets and to please go ahead and buy them. You can likely remember they're not perfect, because sometimes they don't realize you purchased it already on that side or another. Mobile ads are specifically designed to be viewed on mobile devices, so they anticipate particular dimensions and functions, such as how you're more likely to have a very narrow screen, but it's also a touch screen versus if you're on your laptop. In this case, YouTube has set it to the dimensions of my screen. LA Times also arranges their contents and ads to maximize whatever dimension screens you're using. Social media ads come in all sorts of shapes and forms depending on the social media site. So we have one with YouTube here, and here's one for Tumblr. So for example, Instagram relies on visuals, text, and hashtags, and a couple little things like, being able to vote or other things. Sometimes there are different forms, such as how Facebook has sponsored posts on the site, sponsored stories, and sponsored or rather suggested posts right in your feed. And one final one to talk about is search engine marketing, is paying for placement based on keywords put into key search engines. You may also see this done in page such as how Amazon sponsored products is they ban the products that are presented on the results page and the product page based on what the person searched for. Keywords can get pretty specific. For example, past student was part of a hair care product business. They only focused on those looking for high quality hair straighteners. Notice how they're able to likely get a better return because they are more specific keywords than just the general hair straightener keyword. Notably, these keywords are auctioned off, so it's a matter, effectively, you want to make sure that you know your competitors, and that it's a matter a lot what your competitors also want, but it's also especially a good reason to differentiate. So key emphasis is, as we noted in the past section on search engine optimization, differentiation is better in terms of leads and less expensive in the long run. So here's an example are the different ads available on YouTube. They can give you a sense of the different ways you can have ads appear for a context where your potential customer is browsing and watching videos. So a key thing to consider is how each ad may have strengths and weaknesses from the message you wish to present and how your customer might receive it. So we have those more traditional display ads, which again vary how much movement or noise it can include. You have overlay ads that are placed directly over the video. You have skippable and non-skippable video ads. We have pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll ads to reflect whether they will play before, in the middle, or after the video. We see those bumper ads we talked about, which are extra short, and we see sponsored cards, which are placed here. So this video link has a quick discussion on different types of pre, mid, and post-roll ads based on things like likely user completion or if they're likely to click on a call to action. Remember, strategies can be mixed and matched and are often incorporated into the platform itself. So here's an example of some items from a Facebook page. So Facebook brings users' eyeballs to advertisers. So first, here's a suggested post from Fox. I have family members that likely follow and like posts from Fox. Next, we have a likely remarketing campaign, retargeting, because they likely notice I read news on sci-fi shows, including but not limited to The Gifted right here. They're also likely knows I've looked up information on TV shows that are only available on streaming services, like Star Trek Discovery, so they're like, hey, come see Fox now. You can see here for the slide ad listed as sponsored that they're advertising Total Wine. This is likely a combination of anticipating likely needs based on my social network and psychographics. Upon reading the copy, Total Wine and More now delivers. I also believe this is based on search history, remarketing, and retargeting, because at the time I screen capped this, one of your fellow students, classmates, at the time, were working on food and alcohol delivery projects, and therefore now I have ads informing me of Total Wine and More's new service. Every term it's fun to see which of your companies is especially aggressive. So at the moment, Black Rifle is a clear winner to the point that they're also advertising on my household's advertising. So my spouse is finding ads and is like, okay, thanks. On a meta level, while yes, I imagine somewhere a database can tell when I'm teaching a class because suddenly my search history gets very erratic because I look up examples for the class and do basic research on industries to better understand your projects. So just something to think about how data can be used. So in sum, just an example of how sampling of internet ads can be mixed and matched in all sorts of ways. Likewise, you'll need to remember that your advertisement may be side by side with all sorts of other ads, content, and other situational factors. So advertisers continue to develop and use new media vehicles to cut through the clutter of traditional advertising media. So for example, retail kiosks have not only in-house ads, but also allow customers to find inventory and learn more about other available products, and do things like even virtually sample or try on products. Subway tunnel ads, pasted right next to each other, make it look like when you drive by high speeds that they're moving. Burnout Paradise was one of the handful of games that accepted advertising and included an ad for Barack Obama's presidential campaign at the time. And they do it in textbooks. While marketing textbooks make sense, the public's often more concerned by brand placement and things like math textbooks because of the age of the audience, kids, and that they don't have a chance to opt out. And this image is from Google's internal labs where they're experimenting with different virtual reality ad objects and room design. So this would be the devices right over your eyes. Many further organizations use augmented reality, where your smartphone displays the real world but has an overlay. Here is an example of augmented reality. Augmented reality is where your smartphone displays an overlay on the real world, such as seeing a picture of the street with little signs pointing out important facts, or other ways our world gets added sound, visuals, or other sensory data through your phone or computer. Nonprofits often use emotional appeals to create interest, but they only go so far. And they found that augmented reality is really good at directing emotional energy for the audience. So campaigns tend to do better at making the audience feel more like they're part of the story, that they are the hero. And in essence, they can make those contributions that they might do more tangible. And this leads to better IDA progression, where we not only instill desire, but we more easily lead them to action. So we see examples such as Crowd Rise. The towers grew as people donated. An achievement game of sorts where the videos were unlocked as a tower and donations rose. And in this one, the British National Health Service had a billboard changed to where the screen would show you donating blood and filling a bag, and the billboard showed the patient making a recovery. This was meant to increase blood donations in the UK. And don't forget, we have lots of fancy new ones, but the old ones still are pretty important. So this is a nice video which discusses how each medium comes with its needs. How do your audience members use it? It's not just about what message to send, but how to send it via your medium. So this video is B2B Marketing 11 Effective Email Tips for making better use of your email medium. As a side note, remember it's super important to have metrics on hand so that you have a way to compare results by email or time. Just recently, a nursery I get an email from realized many customers weren't getting the emails because they had changed the time the email was sent. The program sent the emails from a different IP address, which meant the emails were now blocked for a large swath of the list. Now they were back to sending the emails at the old time. Here are two examples of how the promotional mix is very much about the customer when deciding on the message medium and the message itself. Cinder Roasted serves two major segments: those looking for customizable gifts, say organizations and funnel consumers, and those in a location looking for a snack, shoppers at malls or attendees at different fairs and festivals. The first set of pictures in the slide is their showroom, located in a downtown part of the local city. Notice that they are not just about nuts. There are other products offered. How might that brand extension have worked? Why have apples? Why have the ability to say, see the factory? Notice the different types of displays and information used. What do they anticipate about their customers? And so the second set of pictures in the slide are for the booths. They have kettles that cook the nuts right there in the booths. There's big signs here. There are bowls with samples. Those are different types of displays and information used. What do they anticipate the customers hear? Now let's do another example. Remember, good ads can make use of the medium for added message making. So these are two examples that use our expectations of websites that help promote their movies. Both make an effort to look like their real counterparts, to highlight both how similar and how strange their movie concept is, which is effectively a core value the film brings to us, is that world building. It's the way they let us glimpse of a strange world they let us see through the films. Oh, excuse me. So in this one, Monster University mimics a college website aimed toward a traditional 18 to 23 undergraduates, and unfortunately the website was no longer available from the looks of it. But I imagine it wasn't too much effort given how much of the material was likely created while the movie makers were originally brainstorming the ideas and world building, so win-win with resources they already had. Second, fortunately this one is working still, the website for Jurassic World was crafted as if it was for an actual working park, the big idea of the movie. As the movie release drew near, more content would be released to give people a hint of what was to come and encourage people to get excited about the movie. The day the movie was released, the website started adding warnings such as experiencing some dino-sized technical issues. Notes such as how the wait times are all at 0 minutes. Running park visitors on some park cams and other ominous content. You can probably guess from your knowledge of the Jurassic Park franchise what was supposedly happening to those fictional park visitors. They have gone back to that peaceful park example, but with the next film coming soon, they've actually changed it again to warn of the peril promised in their latest film. So what are some other ways advertisers make use of the mediums? So in sum, let your media selection be made to further your strategy in many ways. And so here's an example of Westworld for more examples. So this is part of a video series BMW released online around 2001 and 2002, quite some time ago. This ad is about 7 minutes, and there's an even longer one that's 9 minutes. So why do you think BMW made these? So go ahead, you can take a look at the video and think about it. Okay, so what did you think? So maybe things like, hey, no need for warnings because it's not a regular commercial, so you don't have to plaster everywhere that this is for pretend or on a closed course. You can see how Madonna can poke fun at herself. You can show off the car. This has viral value because it was posted online and on YouTube and other places, easy to email to your friend. And it tells a story that may be too expensive that you couldn't otherwise tell through regular TV. So as you can imagine, BMW is also less restricted by timing factors or advertising regulations such that they would need to make note that it was on a closed course. So lots of good reasons, and you'll see that they keep doing things like that. So on a side joke version, National Treasure 2 had a really long scene where they escape by using the car's dashboard screen to drive backwards. So here's another example that we'll wrap up on, that we're going to talk about native advertising and content advertising. So this is ways we not only place the media, but the way we kind of adjust it based on the media itself. So organizations have often engaged in what's called native advertising, sometimes called soft advertising in China. So in this form of advertising, the ad is made to look as closely like regular site content as possible. It varies how much of it was written by the usual content provider versus the advertiser. So this example is from Ashford University. Others may include something like video game website being asked to write up a top 10 PS4 games by Sony, who makes PlayStation. Now in this example of native advertising the site, The Kitchen, you have a mix of same site links, some same company links, and then sponsored promotions like from Lonnie or Lowe's or House. So promotional methods often raise ethical concerns since on the one hand you get a seamless experience, but customers may view advertorials unaware and they don't like this. They can lead to exaggerated claims. There's security of personnel information in a database, and cookies. So effectively, there's transparency issues that customers feel a little icky about. So marketers must work to address these concerns before they get out of hand. So here's an example of how even paid media like sponsored posts are getting messier. In the picture on the left, you can see that you might also like section. They have mixed in links to web pages from the same site, but also from sponsors. But in this one, The Atlantic, a digital magazine, native advertising represents sponsored content where the marketing team of a firm gives it an article to print or has one of the publisher's writers actually write something. For other sites, it may take the form of, again, that top 10 video game list at the behest of a certain developer. The Atlantic posted this article a couple of years ago. As Ad Age writes, like previous native ads on the Atlantic site, the milestone year post resembled an Atlantic article, but for a tag above the headline reading, Sponsor Content, and text at the bottom that said, Sponsored Content, presented by so-and-so. This time it was by the Church of Scientology, and above it, the Scientology symbol. Many critics of the Church of Scientology were not amused. The Atlantic responded by putting this label and outlining it in yellow. But the Scientology critics and media critics were still not amused. They did eventually pull it down and say they were going to not only consider their sponsors, but also consider how they would treat sponsored content from now on. So the practice of native advertising still continues. So for example, the New York Times Now app was a platform that had been solely funded by sponsored content. And you can see plenty of ways news and content sites where there's sponsored content with varying levels of how transparent they are about intent. So in effect, native advertising is still around, still an issue where we're still not sure as customers and marketers like about transparency norms. So in sum, new promotional developments mean new ethical challenges that marketers must consider. So content marketing is making content that is valuable for customers for the purposes of facilitating exchange with the customer. It sometimes overlaps with native advertising, but is much more inclusive to include any type of content that a customer actually finds intrinsically valuable to consume, and they tend to be a bit more transparent. So you are providing value through your content. They can include blogs, social media posts, videos, articles, lists, apps, podcasts, curated galleries of fan-made content, and more. For example, many celebrities have their own social media sites, or a site that sells makeup or yarn will post how-to videos. The BMW video and the fake Monsters U and Jurassic World websites would also count as such. There's more examples that I link in the notes section of this page. And as you can see what this table shows is how content marketing aims to be helpful, while native advertising tends to be less transparent and more tricky, to be frank. So this is an example over here on how Intelligista puts out brewing guides for its customers. So in sum, content marketing boils down to how we can make more touch point with our customers and more value through content. But it must be content that actually fits their needs, and we tend to try to be more transparent about what our intent is. So keep in mind, content marketing and native advertising are not entirely new trends. We have just changed the way we deliver. Our focus is now more on how to actually cater to customer needs, say our marketing concept, rather than simply forceful selling techniques. So for example, product placement and sponsored content has been around for some time. For example, housekeeping magazines' recommended brands were often a product of deals made with the companies. Another is how Absolute Vodka had Sex and the City write an episode based on their brand. In this example, comic maker Bill Watterson comments on the way hobbyist magazines are as much about loving your hobby as much as it is hoping you'll buy more stuff. So to wrap up, let's do a quick activity. You'll likely, you can either pull up on your mobile device or a new tablet or laptop, whatever you're on, and pick a website you currently go to. ID the first 3 marketing-related items you observe. So what did you see? What type of site was it? Social media? A search engine? A commercial site? You'll likely have seen brand elements like logos for the organization, colors, perhaps a hosting organization, so a prominent person on Twitter you were looking at. You may see banner ads, affiliate marketing, recommendation systems, all sorts. So with that, hopefully if you haven't already, go ahead and open yourself up a device or tab and see what you can find. See what types of internet advertising you see and how it fits in with other types of promotional mixes. So this is your instructor encouraging you to go ahead, open up that tab, open up or navigate away, and hope you have a good and interesting time with it.